Cunha, picked up some really, really lovely positions. And really, him and Rodgers were the difference makers in the game. If Cunha takes his second chance,
totally.
Then the game's probably a different thing.
Aston Villa remain 3 points off the top of the Premier League, having won their 10th game on the spin for the first time since 1914. Their star man, Morgan Rodgers, hit back-to-back Premier League doubles to down Manchester United 2-1 at Villa Park to keep Villa third and United drop a place to 7th. But despite the defeat, Sunsport's tactical guru Dean Scoggins, who is over there alongside me, Will Pugh, actually, Dino, you think Ruben Amorim didn't play such a terrible tactical plan after all?
No, we talked about it, didn't we, in Team Talk before, about what he could do to alter things to stop Villa. And I think Amorim actually got most of it right. He just got let down a little bit by a few players on the field.
There we go. Well, look, Aston Villa fans, Manchester United fans, there's plenty for both of you in this video. Dino, as always, you've got 5 tactical points from the game that fans may, but probably didn't notice.
Yeah, well, number one, more. Rodgers just shooting again, and how do you like that? Very, very much. But yeah, mistakes from United, and there was a change of attack line there from Villa, and some praise for some other players we should point out. Number 2 is magic 8 ballers. Amorim's new 3 times number 8s, where he had 3 in a line. We'll go into that. Number 3, Pat Cash. You liked that one, didn't you? So Patrick Dorgu and the Man United press, which put Matty Cash under huge pressure. Number 4, to Victor, then spoiled. And that was Šeško targeting the Villa centre-back, but then fluffing his lines. And number 5, fight, camera, action. I love Aston Villa's centre midfielder, Boubacar Kamara.
There we go, Dino, there we go. I tell you what, Dino, this is one of our favourite set of Scoggins headlines for quite a while. Scoggins Sunsport sections.
I love it in the comments when people go, who writes these? And I'm not quite sure whether they're praising me or calling me out for being some sort of lunatic.
Exactly. Yeah. Sometimes you've got to go, it's me, but other times just give the blame to someone else. Right, let's start with Morg. How do you like him? Aston Villa fans like him an awful lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you cannot stop the guy at the moment. Well, actually, maybe you can. If you listen properly to your manager's instructions and do things the right way, Man United might have been able to stop him. So I'll come on to that in a second.
Or listen to you.
Well, yeah, but it's so simple, some of that. But look, let's do the praise first. Let's do the Morgan Rodgers praise. So we'll come on to Man United's shape and what they did in a moment. But what happened was Morgan Rodgers was not in the game. He was barely touching the ball. He was out isolated. He tried a few times to drift right out to the left-hand side and hug that touch line instead of coming into those number 10 positions like him and McGinn do off the lines we talked about in the Team Talk show. It wasn't really happening for him. But what he then identifies as a top-class player is where the space is. And where the space was in this game was not in the left 10 position or the right 10 position. It was sort of in between this long corridor that, because of Man United shape, they created in the pitch. And just before his, early on in the game, he got in that corridor where he fed Ollie Watkins through one-on-one. And then just before his goal, he got in there again. And I don't know whether, more than likely, he was getting a few instructions from Unai Emery behind him, very close to the dugout there. And it was, don't go chasing the game. Let the game come to you. And he's got that knack, hasn't he? And I've talked about this before, about Gareth Bale. I know I'm a big Spurs fan and I would remember this, but that 2012-13 season where Gareth Bale was just whacking it in from all over the place. This has got Gareth Bale vibes all about it from Morgan Rodgers. It's like, don't be involved in the game for 25, 30 minutes, ball comes to his feet, top corner, thank you very much. So yeah, and then John McGinn does his role in the goal as well, where, as we talked about in the first goal, in the Team Talk show we talked about, McGinn comes off, Luke Shaw does a relatively good job in jumping out and going with him, but Morgan Rodgers and Ollie Watkins and Yuri Tielemans are on the run. They're already going. Rodgers goes and the ball goes over the top. Wonderful, wonderful first touch. And then Man United are in a pretty good position. Just stop him shooting, lads. Come on.
He's really good at it.
Have you not watched the videos the last few weeks?
Have you not even just watched the West Ham game highlights the week before?
You let him shoot from 20 to 25 yards. I mean, they had a warning early in the game where he actually scuffed it a little bit on the edge of the box and it was a comfortable save for Lamans. But yeah, and there was a couple of mistakes. I mean, Yoro gets a little bit complacent with him and almost sort of allows him to come back into a dangerous position. But the big one for me is Ugarte. So Dalot has tracked the runner. The Aidan Heaven has tracked the runner and Ollie Watkins has taken him away. Fair play. But Ugarte, you have to just come out and block the shot. It's only about 5 yards away, and Rodgers sort of wanders in, and there's this sort of moment of freeze frame where it's a bit like, oh, okay then. No one's going to track me down. I'll just bend this in the top corner. So, yeah, brilliant skill. But considering Man United had the defensive setup to deal with it, they then didn't. And so, fair play to Rodgers. He takes advantage.
Well, so it's quite interesting, Dino. Maybe Man United thought, oh, he's inside the area, so this isn't going in because he only bangs him in.
Oh, yeah, let's just let him in the box
exactly,
as well. Yeah.
So it's really interesting what you say, because I got to watch Morgan Rodgers in the flesh last week. One spectacular goal, one a little bit annoying, but still a good finish. Now, I thought almost exactly the same, such large parts of the game. I was like, he's not really doing anything. And so you're sort of hinting at the same thing in the Manchester United game. Obviously, then he pops up and makes game-winning contributions. Yeah. You're talking about the same thing in the Manchester United game. Were United doing anything specific in order to sort of freeze him out of the game early on, and then he had to adapt, or was there something else at play?
Yeah, there definitely was. So Lenny Yoro blocked that space. So Lenny Yoro is the right centre-back, went over and took that space away. And Diogo Dalot was doing a relatively good job screening in front of him as well, which is what we talked about in the Team Talk show.
Blocking those
passing lanes into him. So they starved his supply line. I mean, I think he only had 32 touches in the whole game, which is not very high for a home game for a team who are up third in the Premier League and for their star man. You'd be thinking, get the ball to him at all times. But actually, they starved him of a lot of service, United. And I say they did tactically, they did a brilliant job. It's just individual moment and those finer details in the Premier League that let them down and, to be honest, cost them the game.
So, again, this is sort of to your point and what the whole video is about, really, is that all the stuff we discussed on Team Talk about how you stop him, you were seeing that from Manchester United, namely jumping out and blocking the passing lanes, as you mentioned. You were seeing that, and it was just moments of individual sort of weakness, lack of concentration, or lack of instruction from Amorim?
No, definitely not instruction from Amorim. I would say that Amorim got it absolutely bang on, and it's, the manager can tell you to do things in a game, and you don't do them, and I don't think Manuel Ugarte needs to see the video again to realise that he had to get out and at least throw his body in the line. I mean, if he goes to block the shot and throws his body in the way and Morgan Rodgers chops it back onto his left foot, then maybe one of the other defenders gets across and you slow the whole process down. But as soon as he'd beaten Lenny Yoro, it was almost like, go on then, have a go. And he did.
Yeah, it's a great finish, but you should, as a defender, at least force the attacker into doing something outstanding in order to get the ball
Absolutely,
in the net.
yeah.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Right, Dina, let's move on then to point number 2. Magic 8 ballers, a new system from Amorim. We sort of did a lot about Kobbie Mainoo and what the midfield was going to look like on the Team Talk show, and this took even you by surprise.
Yeah, it did, and it was obviously because Kobbie Mainoo was injured as well. It changed things up even more. So Ugarte played, which I wasn't that surprised about, given Kobbie Mainoo. What we was surprised about, and to go back, this is one of the reasons that Morgan Rodgers was starved of possession, is basically United had this 3 number 8s across the midfield. So they had the back 3. We'll show this in our lovely graphics with back 3, and then Ugarte in the middle of in front of those, and then 3 8s, which was Bruno, Mount, and Cunha. And that allowed the wing backs to maintain their width, and then obviously you've got Šeško up front. And what it did to Villa's box in the middle was sort of not confuse it, but basically go, well, there you go, try and play through that then. And I say, I was critical of Ugarte in there, and he was woeful on the ball in the game, but actually he screened around the back of that 3 very well, and where Tielemans runs across the back to be that flexible player that we talked about in Team Talk. So just to remind everyone, Villa do the 2 centre-backs and then the 2 midfielders in front of that to create the box shape, which they then flex to try and play through and around. The fullbacks stay wide, and then Tielemans comes in the gaps to create space, which then McGinn and Rodgers fall into. So because Ugarte was doing that screening job around the back of the 3, and as I said in the Team Talk show, don't press. Do not press Villa. A couple of times Šeško makes a mistake with a bit of a lazy press. There was a moment after about 18 or 19 minutes where I think it was Martinez's injury, and Bruno gets hold of Šeško and he's talking to him about the press. Don't go. don't allow them to take you out of the game because then we're 11 v 10.
Quite.
And they were really, really good at that, United. And that they allowed also, as soon as United won the ball back, Mount and Cunha to bounce out of those number 8 positions to go into attack. So Amorim had worked that out. So it was this kind of 3-1-3 formation in the middle of the park with the wing-backs out wide. So it was really, really clever. It stopped Villa playing through there. Onana, Kamara couldn't find Tielemans, McGinn and Rodgers. And it got to the point where Villa were sort of looking at each other as to how do we get the ball through those lines. So fair play to United, or to Amorim at that stage, because from a tactical blueprint against Aston Villa, that was a really, really good plan.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, I suppose. So in effect, it's just the 3-4-3 we're used to seeing from Emery. It's just the two wide players in the 3 dropping back in to sort of help create
alongside
that line.
Bruno. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and we've spoke about with Chelsea. I know the Chelsea's box is the box midfield, so it's the 2 attacking 10s, if you like, and the 2 defensive ones. Villa's is that, but just deeper on the pitch, basically. But even with those teams, we've spoken about how it's those systems are in order to enable direct passes from the back to the front. So it's quite interesting. Did you find that it was taking a little bit away from Man United going forward?
No, I didn't, and that was part of the magic of those number 8s, was because it allowed them to almost be like, I mean, it's like the coiled spring effect almost. Is you're here, ready, waiting. If we don't win possession, we're organised, but we're ready to spring as soon as then they go. And because those 2 are in that position, and Cunha, picked up some really, really lovely positions, and really him and Rodgers were the difference makers in the game. If Cunha takes his second chance, then the game's probably a different thing. And those 2, but that was United's plan: sit in that spring 3, and then allow Mount to go one side and Cunha to go the other. And you've still got obviously Bruno Fernandes on the ball there. So no, it was a brilliant plan from Amorim. I think we'll see it again. I think we'll see it again, especially when Casemiro comes back and he can be the one instead of Ugarte who sits behind that line of 3.
Yeah, interesting, Dino, to hear you say all of that stuff, and it makes perfect sense. We talked extensively in the Team Talk show about how Villa want you. They're trying to goad you. They want you to press, which is why they put their centre backs so sort of almost on the goal line when they take goal kicks or the goalie has the ball. Now you've said all that, it makes perfect sense. We move on though to Patrick Dorgu and Matty Cash, and an instance where some excellent pressing by Manchester United leads to their only goal of the game. Dorgu shutting down Cash. Cunha ends up with the ball. Almost a doppelganger of a goal that Matthias Fernandes scored at London Stadium last week, only it was Ezri Konsa who lost the ball then to West Ham rather than Cash this time.
Yeah, and you're absolutely spot on about the 2 differences, but it's where to press and when to press.
Right.
Okay, so they didn't press centrally. Do not press centrally against Aston Villa, because you'll get 2-3 players pass the ball, they'll go round you, and then they're opening the space for McGinn and Rodgers. Okay?
Massive overlap.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Don't do that. The play's 2 press, and because of that 3 as well. So again, we'll show this on the graphic because this is sort of a development of where the 3 becomes. So again, Cunha, Fernandes and Mount as a 3, Šeško in front, and the wing-backs high. The wing-backs being high is the key, because Villa put their full-backs right on the touchlines, okay? And then also you've got to say behind that, Man United were brave, because that means Luke Shaw as the left centre-back's got to take McGinn, and Yoro as the right centre-back has got to take Rodgers, and that only leaves one centre-back to pick up Ollie Watkins. So it's a brave setup, man v man pressing, as we've talked about before. But what United did it in the 11th minute, where they nearly nicked it off Cash in exactly the same scenario, and actually Cash plays it up the line, it gets deflected, it goes out for a throw. But I was a bit like, there's an opportunity. That's going to happen again. And it did. And that time, Cash decides to have a bit of a lazy touch back in field. Dorgu goes at him, and then they score the goal. And by the way, thanks to United fans, will be thanking Victor Lindelof, who decides to run in the opposite direction of Cunha, who's about to shoot. But, maybe still thought he was in a United shirt at that stage. But
I thought it was weird when he celebrated with him.
yeah, kissed the badge. Yeah, but no, it's very, very good tactical thinking from Amorim. He has got the shape right. He has got the press right, and in that instance, they get their reward. And as I say, individual mistakes off the ball have cost Man United the game, really.
Yeah. Do you find, Dino, there's a bit of a shift this season, it feels. Certainly, obviously, I stand in this studio across one of the great tactical minds in the land.
In the room.
Well, yeah, exactly, yeah. Yeah, there does sort of feel a little bit of a sense from you, and I know you're sort of not one for hyperbole anyway, but a little bit of a sense from you, and then the wider football world, that actually Amorim's maybe not such of a fraud as he was being made out to be last year, and a bit of patience that Jim Ratcliffe was quite keen to show in him is maybe paying off.
Yeah, and I'm pleased to say that not that Amorim cares what I say, but I'm pleased to say that in last season especially, I was very, very much sure on it's not the system that's the problem.
50 million cross-platform views we've got.
Absolutely, yeah. So I must be right about a few things, right? But yeah, it's application of the system that's wrong, and 3-4-3 can adapt into different shapes. After half-time, United switched to 4 at the back a lot of the time, and that was Dorgu dropping into almost the left-back position and Shaw shuffling along with Aiden Heaven. And they adapted it because obviously Bruno Fernandes going off meant that they had Lisandro Martinez in midfield, which is obviously not as natural for him. So they went a bit more solid. So yes, I think that the United players are starting to get it and really, starting to believe in this system as well. And, obviously their league position is better. And this was a really good performance away at a very, very good team without Amad Diallo, without Mbermo, and without who's very important to the shape, Casemiro, and so it was a very, and do you know what? Actually, I think Mazraoui would have played in this game as well because it was just the sort of adaptable 3-4-3 shape that he would have used Mazraoui in. So it was it was a good performance, and yeah, I agree with you. The players are starting to trust the manager a bit more.
Yeah, maybe a touch of flexibility from Amorim, even though he might not want to let people know that's what he's doing. But interesting stuff indeed, Dino. What it feels like to me is that it's another one of those things, and this is different positions this time, but where the tactical sort of plans that these elite level managers are expecting their players to deliver now is another one that requires a player to basically play 2 positions in one, i.e. your 2 players you've mentioned there, they're expected to play centre midfielders and out in the wing.
Yeah, and absolutely. And when a manager sets it up in a tactical way and then he says, and you'll get this opportunity. If this works, it will fall to you here. Then someone like Matheus Cunha, the ball falls to him, he smacks it in, everyone goes, oh, blimey, great plan, boss. And then the next plan, you believe in even more.
Absolutely. Now, Dino, no one can ever say that we are not in touch with our audience and know exactly what they're after. Well, question number 4, the title to it, is to Victor, then spoiled. Now, we had Stars in Your Eyes reference from the early 90s and Matthew Kelly the other day. This week, we've got a Shakespeare reference.
Just a bit of history. To the victor, the spoils. The spoils of war go to the victor. So,
can you please, any of you at home, because I've been put through the ringer this morning for not knowing what that meant. Can you let me know if you understood what to Victor then spoiled or to Victor the spoils meant in the comments, please, before Dino carries on. But Dino, it is about football, believe it or not. Talk to us.
Yeah, so I think that obviously Victor Lindelof, I was going to say split the fan base at United, but I don't think he did. I don't think anybody liked him. But he's actually done all right at Villa, and he filled in for Pau Torres quite admirably a couple of times. He had a good assist for or pre-assist for the goal at West Ham, and so he's done a reasonably good job. However, United went after him, and they were very, very close to pulling it off. And it was a couple of times where, so Mason Mount, as I talked about, had that flexible number 8 position where he went inside, and that meant that Lindelof closed the gap closer to Konza, which then opens the space up in behind him, which Šeško was targeting. He got in once early on where he was a bit unlucky. The ball comes over his head, very difficult skill to drag that out of the air and then play. But then it breaks to him the second time. He's got to score, and all of the runs he was making were in behind Lindelof. And again, because of that adaptable shape that Amorim was using, because Diogo Dalot was right on the right wing, the left back's got to go across. So, as soon as Maatsen is dragged away from Lindelof, then you've got that space around Lindelof again. So it was really, really, it was obvious to me that was the plan. Cunha can go one way, Bruno can go the other, but Mount was hovering around Lindelof to put him off to allow Šeško to get in. And United should have led in the game. And then Cunha, with the Cunha miss, which I keep going back to, again, was a run in front of Lindelof where they're targeting that area.
We're talking about the header, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't say this often, but I'd have scored.
Yeah, quite. No, good. I mean, just carry on, because it's exactly the same. It does feel like, as we're doing this episode and as we were talking about it before, that ultimately, and look, Villa fans, you might be a little bit annoyed or rattled by this. Realistically, if United finish their chances, they at least draw the game, probably win it.
Oh, I think Villa fans will accept that. I mean, I think the biggest compliment for Villa in the game is that they didn't play great. They weren't at the top of their game, and yet they still won. And that's the sign of a class side, right? You're not at the top of your game. You're struggling a little bit against a team who's come and done something a little bit different against you, and your world-class player delivers 2 goals to win you the game. I mean, you take that every week, wouldn't you? You'd stand there, and I don't think the whole end are going to be complaining that Man United had more possession and more touches in the box and more box entries and more shots than they did. 2-1 lads.
Moments, innit? You've got to convert all
Absolutely.
of those
And they've got big moment players, and perhaps United's big moment players didn't take theirs, whereas Villa's did.
Yeah. So Lindelof then, any more on him, Dean?
Yeah, I don't want to be too critical because, again, they won the game. But in the coming weeks, if they don't get Torres back or Mings back as well relatively quickly, Konza's class, okay? 1v1 defender. He'll start for England in the World Cup, fitness permitting. But Lindelof and the way that the fullbacks bomb on means that that's the area that you can target Villa. And I would say over the next few weeks, I would say a few managers will do the similar thing to Amorim. And if your striker's a bit more clinical, you'll get the rewards.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, point number 5, Dino. Fight Kamara action. This man...
You get that pun, right?
Yeah, I do, thanks. This man is key to what Aston Villa do, not only on the ball, as you highlighted on Team Talk last week, with his movement, opening up those passing lanes, and being available for those short balls out from the back if needed, but off the ball as well. In particular this week, you were well impressed.
I just love him. I think if he's... we talk about these top-class midfield players in all these different teams, and, we've got Man United looking at someone like Carlos Baleba, and, Manchester City have gone looking for Rodri replacements and stuff like that. And look, before you shout at me, Villa fans, I'm not for a second saying that a team that's third in the league and in the title race is going to sell somebody like this. But he is, for me, would be top of the list for all of those elite level clubs to be looking at a flexible midfield player. Because Villa have got this, we've talked about the box shape and we talked about that a lot in Team Talk. Another thing I noticed in this game is, and actually it could have been the key thing in the game had Man United shape not been so good, but it was like the 6 points of a dice. So the number 6 on a dice, 2 centre-backs, 2 midfield players and 2 players in front, where they're in exactly that line.
Double box, if you will.
Exactly, and they go off Kamara. He's the one. So if he goes over, there were times where he went over to block Cunha, and then the whole group of 6 comes over, or the other 5, 6 including him, comes over to join him. And then he's the trigger for them to press or not press. He's the one who sees the setup as they're playing out. And maybe without Pau Torres in the team, he's taken a bit more responsibility, where he's like the trigger for their movement. And then Onana and Konza will move off him, and then McGinn comes into the gap that he's vacated. So his tactical awareness is great, but he's combative. He barely ever gives the ball away, and I just, I know most of the viewers know I'm a Tottenham fan. God, what I wouldn't give for him in the centre of the Tottenham's midfield. He is quality.
So they're not one of those elite clubs you were talking about that should be looking at.
Not right now, no.
Absolutely brilliant stuff, Dino. Talking to Tottenham, we'll be covering Tottenham on this Thursday's episode of Team Talk. Thomas Frank, where's it all gone wrong? There's a long-term sustainable philosophy, was what a Tottenham fan I know said when he got appointed. We'll let Dino loose on his beloved Spurs again on Thursday. Thank you very much for listening and watching this video. Let us know what you think. Aston Villa fans, United fans, let us know what you think in the comments. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and we'll see you on Thursday and then over Christmas.